The young boy stood in the center of the courtroom, his small hands gripping the edges of the wooden podium. His deep brown eyes scanned the room, filled with unfamiliar faces, some curious, some skeptical, some impatiently waiting for the proceedings to move forward. He had been here before. Courtrooms, judges, lawyers, they had become an unfortunate part of his young life. But today was different. Today, he wasn't just another case. Today, he had something to say. The judge, a woman in her late 40s with sharp eyes and a composed demeanor, adjusted her glasses as she glanced at the boy's file. "State your name for the record," she said, her voice steady but not unkind. The boy took a deep breath. "Jordan. Jordan Carter," he said softly, his voice carrying a weight that seemed too heavy for someone his age. The judge nodded, flipping through the papers before her. "Jordan, do you understand why you're here today?" He swallowed, his eyes darting towards the man sitting at the defense table. The man didn't look at him. He just sat there, stiff, unreadable. Jordan's fingers curled into fists. "Yes, Your Honor," he answered. There was a pause before the judge continued. "This case has been complicated. I understand you requested to speak today. What is it that you wish to say?" The room fell silent. Even the faint sound of shuffling paper ceased. Jordan inhaled sharply. His heart pounded against his ribs, but he had come too far to back down now. "You're my sister," he said. The courtroom froze. For a moment, there was nothing but stunned silence. Then murmurs rippled through the gallery. The court reporter hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Even the judge seemed momentarily caught off guard. "What did you just say?" she asked, her tone no longer just composed. It carried something else now, something uncertain. Jordan's hands gripped the podium tighter. You're my sister," he repeated, this time louder, firmer. "I know you don't know me, but I know you, and I know the truth." The judge leaned back in her chair, carefully studying him. "Jordan, that's a very serious statement. Do you have any proof to support this claim?" He nodded quickly. "I do, but you won't find it in your files. You won't find it in any legal document because they buried it. They hid it from both of us." The judge's fingers tapped against her desk. "Who are they?" Jordan's gaze flickered to the defense table again. He said, pointing at the man who had still refused to look at him. The entire courtroom turned toward the man in question. He was tall, graying at the temples, his suit pristine, his expression unreadable. But there was something in his eyes now, a flicker of something close to recognition, a hint of discomfort. The judge exhaled. "Mr. Carter," she addressed the man, her voice tighter now. "Do you know what this boy is talking about?" For the first time since entering the room, the man shifted. He finally turned his head to look at Jordan, his lips pressed into a thin line. "Your Honor, Tell her the truth," Jordan interrupted. His voice cracked slightly, but his stance remained firm. "Tell her who I am." The man sighed, rubbing his temples before speaking again. "I think this child is confused." Jordan's jaw clenched. "I'm not confused," he shot back. "I know what I'm saying. I've spent years piecing it together." The judge held up her hand, silencing them both. Her sharp eyes locked onto the man's. "Mr. Carter, is there anything about this child's claim that you recognize?" A long silence stretched between them. Then finally he spoke. "There were circumstances," he admitted, his voice careful. "But this is not the place." "This is exactly the place," Jordan cut in again. His pulse raced, but he refused to let the fear creep in. "You spent years pretending I don't exist, hoping no one would ever connect the dots. But I know who I am. I know where I come from. And I know who she is." The judge's expression remained unreadable, but there was something in her eyes now, a flicker of doubt, a crack in the wall of professionalism she had built around herself. "Jordan," she said after a moment. "Explain." He took another breath, steadying himself. "I was in the system since I was a baby. I don't remember my mom or dad. I was told they were gone. No records, no real details. Just gone. I was shuffled from home to home, never staying anywhere for long. But a few months ago, I found something. An old file in one of the foster homes I was placed in. It wasn't much, just a birth certificate, half covered in redactions. But the name of the mother? It wasn't completely blacked out. He paused, letting the words sink in. It was your mother's name. The air in the room seemed to thin. The judge's posture stiffened. Her face unreadable. That doesn't mean, she started, but Jordan wasn't done. I started digging, he pressed on. I found old hospital records. A birth record that was sealed but not destroyed. The birth date matched mine. The hospital? Same one you were born in. Then I found something else. Something no one could have predicted. The judge's fingers gripped the edge of her desk, but she remained silent, waiting. A DNA test, Jordan said. One of my last foster homes let me take one. I sent it to a database that tracks lost family members. I didn't expect much, but then there it was. A match. The silence in the room became deafening. Jordan swallowed hard, then whispered, "It was you." The judge didn't move. She just stared at him, her normally steady hands slightly trembling now. The murmurs in the courtroom swelled again, but she didn't acknowledge them. Her gaze remained locked on the boy before her. This is a court of law, not an ancestry search, Mr. Carter interjected, though his voice lacked the confidence it had before. Jordan ignored him. His attention was solely on the judge. "I don't want anything from you," he said, his voice softer now. "I don't need you to take me in. I don't even need you to believe me. I just needed to say it. I needed you to know that I exist, that I've always existed." The judge blinked rapidly, as if trying to process everything at once. "Jordan," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper, "if what you're saying is true." "It is," he said. "And you know it. You can feel it." Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. For the first time since he had walked into the courtroom, her carefully built walls seemed to crack. She leaned forward slightly, studying his face, his features that, now that she truly looked, seemed eerily familiar. The courtroom remained silent, waiting. But Jordan had said everything he needed to say. His heart was still pounding, but there was a strange sense of peace now. Whatever happened next, whatever she chose to do with the truth, it was out there, and she would never be able to unhear it. The judge sat frozen, her mind racing, her hands trembling slightly as she folded them together on the desk in front of her. The boy's words echoed in her head. "You're my sister. I've always existed." She had spent years devoted to the law, to logic, to order. And yet, here stood a boy, a stranger, claiming to be her brother. Her brother. She studied his face again, this time without the filter of disbelief. His eyes, dark and piercing, carried something familiar. His jawline, the shape of his nose. There were pieces of her own reflection in him. It unsettled her. It terrified her. The courtroom was still unnervingly quiet. The stenographer had stopped typing. The attorneys exchanged glances, unsure whether to intervene. The spectators watched, holding their collective breath. "Your Honor," Mr. Carter finally spoke, his voice laced with irritation. "This boy is clearly confused. We should be quiet." The judge's voice was quiet but firm, slicing through the tension. It wasn't just a judicial command, it was personal. Mr. Carter stiffened, shifting uncomfortably. He opened his mouth, but her sharp gaze cut him off. She turned back to Jordan. "Where did you take the DNA test?" she asked. Jordan hesitated for the first time, as if afraid to hope. "A private lab. One of my last foster homes let me use their address to send it in. I have the results." He hesitated, then quickly reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. "I brought them." The bailiff stepped forward, taking the paper from Jordan's hand and carrying it over to the judge. She unfolded it with careful precision. Her eyes scanned the page, her pulse hammering harder with every word. Probability of sibling match, 99.9%. Her breath caught in her throat. Jordan wasn't lying. He wasn't mistaken. The paper was undeniable proof, scientific, indisputable. The judge clenched her jaw, pressing the paper down on the desk, as if she needed to feel its weight to believe it was real. Her mind scrambled for an explanation. Her mother had only ever told her she was an only child. There had never been whispers of a lost sibling. No rumors. No forgotten baby pictures. Nothing. But the document in front of her said otherwise. She lifted her gaze to the boy standing before her, his body tense, his fingers digging into the wood of the podium. He wasn't just some orphan looking for answers. He knew. And now, so did she. She turned back to Mr. Carter, her expression unreadable. You knew about this. It wasn't a question. Mr. Carter's lips parted, but no words came. You knew, she repeated, this time with quiet fury. A muscle in his jaw twitched. Your Honor, this. Don't. Her voice was cold now, sharp like the blade of a knife. You've spent your career burying truths, twisting facts. But this isn't just a case. This is my life. Mr. Carter's silence confirmed everything. Jordan's fists clenched. Why? His voice was raw, shaking. Why did you hide me? The older man sighed, rubbing his forehead. It wasn't my decision. Then whose was it? The judge snapped. Mr. Carter exhaled, his composure cracking. Your mother's. The words hit her like a physical blow. Jordan flinched. She knew. Mr. Carter nodded, his voice now low, exhausted. She made a choice. She had you when she was young, barely out of school. Your father, he hesitated, then shook his head. He wasn't around. When she became pregnant again, she was overwhelmed. She didn't want to go through it again. She had a choice, raise another child alone, or give him a different future. She chose the second option. Jordan's face twisted. She gave me away? Mr. Carter hesitated, then nodded. The judge's hands curled into fists. You were our family's lawyer back then. He didn't respond. That's why you were so desperate to shut him up, she continued, the realization dawning on her like a cold wave crashing over her. Because you were involved in this. You helped cover it up. His silence was the only confirmation she needed. Jordan's breathing was uneven, his chest rising and falling rapidly. She never wanted me, he whispered, his voice cracking. The judge swallowed hard. Jordan. No, he said quickly, shaking his head. I don't need pity. I just wanted to know the truth. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to steady. And now I do. She stared at him, the weight of everything pressing down on her. Jordan, It's okay, he cut her off gently. You don't have to say anything. You didn't know. She felt something unfamiliar, something foreign and overwhelming. Guilt. Loss. A fierce, protective instinct she had never experienced before. Jordan shifted his weight. I should go. Her heart clenched. No, not like this. She didn't know this boy. She didn't raise him. She wasn't there when he took his first steps, when he said his first words, when he cried himself to sleep in strange homes with strangers who never stayed. But he was her brother, and she wasn't about to let him walk away. Jordan. He stopped, turning back. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. You don't have to go. His eyes widened slightly. She exhaled, the words terrifying and foreign, but right. I don't know what happens next. I don't know how to fix this. But I do know that if you're my brother, I don't want to lose you again. A flicker of something, hope, disbelief, crossed his face. Mr. Carter stood abruptly. Your Honor, I strongly advise. Sit down, she snapped, turning her sharp glare on him. I don't take orders from you. Not anymore. Mr. Carter, for the first time in his career, looked uncertain. He slowly sank back into his seat. Jordan swallowed hard. What? What are you saying? She took a deep breath. I'm saying that you spent your whole life searching for the truth. You found it. And now, it's my turn to decide what to do with it. He blinked, unsure whether to believe her. "I don't know how to be a sister," she admitted. "But maybe we can figure it out together." Jordan's throat bobbed as he swallowed. "You really mean that?" She nodded. "I do." The courtroom was silent again, but this time it wasn't suffocating. It was heavy with something else. Something unspoken. Jordan slowly nodded, the smallest hint of a smile appearing at the corner of his lips. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't alone. Jordan stared at her, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. Hope, fear, disbelief. He had spent years searching for answers, never expecting to find himself here, standing in front of a sister he never knew existed. And yet here she was, looking at him not with pity, not with cold detachment, but with something he had never received from anyone before, acknowledgement. The judge took a slow breath, steadying herself. The courtroom remained silent, every spectator hanging onto the moment, as if it were a scene from a movie. But this wasn't a movie. This was real. And she had a decision to make. Jordan licked his lips, his voice barely above a whisper. "So what now?" The judge swallowed, then turned her gaze to Mr. Carter, her voice like ice. "You have no more say in this. Your role in covering this up is over. I suggest you leave." The lawyer opened his mouth to argue, but closed it just as quickly. He could tell. She wasn't asking. He gathered his papers, gave Jordan one last unreadable glance, and walked briskly out of the courtroom. Jordan exhaled, a small breath of relief escaping his lips. "I hated him," he admitted quietly. "He knew the truth, and he still treated me like I was nothing." The judge pressed her lips together. "He's nothing to you now." Jordan nodded, but his expression remained uncertain. "And what about you?" She studied him again, memorizing every detail, his posture, his guarded expression, the way he stood like someone who had always been ready to fight for himself. He wasn't some stranger anymore. He was a part of her. A piece of her family she never even knew was missing. A part of her wanted to tell him she needed time. That she had a life, a career, responsibilities, a carefully structured world that didn't allow for unexpected emotional disruptions. But the other part of her, the one that had spent years feeling like something was incomplete without ever understanding why, knew the truth. "I want to know you," she finally said. "If you'll let me." Jordan's throat bobbed as he swallowed, his fingers tightening around the edge of the podium. "Yeah." She nodded, forcing herself to hold his gaze. "Yeah." A small, breathless chuckle escaped his lips, like he didn't quite believe it. That would be cool. The tension in the room shifted, the heaviness dissolving into something lighter, something fragile but hopeful. The judge turned to the bailiff. "Adjourn the court for the day." The bailiff nodded, stepping forward. "All rise." The courtroom slowly stood, murmurs rippling through the crowd as they watched the judge step down from the bench. Jordan shifted his weight, suddenly unsure of what to do with himself. He had spent so long fighting just to be heard, to be acknowledged, that now, standing here, he didn't know what came next. The judge took a deep breath and walked toward him, hesitating only slightly before speaking. "Do you want to get out of here?" Jordan blinked. "With you?" She nodded. "I don't know what happens next, Jordan, but I do know that I don't want you to leave this courthouse alone." For a moment, he looked at her, searching for any sign of hesitation. But there was none. A small, cautious smile tugged at the corner of his lips. "Okay." They walked out of the courtroom together, side by side, for the first time as family. The sun was setting by the time they stepped out onto the courthouse steps. The air was crisp, carrying the sounds of the city, honking cars, distant chatter, the hum of life moving forward. Jordan pulled his jacket tighter around himself, glancing at her hesitantly. "So, do you always take home random defendants?" The judge huffed a quiet laugh. "You're not a defendant anymore." He tilted his head. "Yeah? Then what am I?" She turned to face him fully, really looking at him. "My brother." Jordan's smile was small, but it was real. "I never thought I'd hear anyone say that." Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just uncharted. The judge shifted her weight. Do you have somewhere to stay tonight? Jordan hesitated. I have a place. Sort of. She raised an eyebrow. He sighed. It's not great. I couch surf. Some friends let me crash sometimes. She frowned. That's not a home. Jordan shrugged. It's what I've got. The judge crossed her arms. Not anymore. He blinked. What? She took a deep breath, trying to make sense of what she was about to offer. Come stay with me. Just for a little while. Until we figure things out. Jordan stared at her, like she had just spoken a foreign language. Are you serious? She nodded. He let out a slow breath, rubbing the back of his neck. I don't want to be a burden. She shook her head. You won't be. For a long moment, he just looked at her, as if waiting for her to take it back. But she didn't. Finally, he nodded. Okay. They walked together down the courthouse steps, the city lights flickering to life around them. Neither of them knew what the future held, but for the first time, they weren't facing it alone. As they walked through the city streets, an awkward silence stretched between them. The judge, Noelle, had spent years commanding courtrooms, making decisions that affected lives, but now, standing next to her newly discovered brother, she felt completely out of her depth. Jordan shoved his hands into his jacket pockets, stealing glances at her. So, what do judges do when they're not in court? She smirked. Mostly paperwork. He chuckled. Yeah, that sounds thrilling. It's not. He let out a breath, looking up at the street lights flickering on above them. This is weird, huh? She didn't pretend to misunderstand. Yeah, but good weird, I think. Jordan nodded, but his face remained guarded. He had spent too many years being let down, learning that hope was dangerous. Noelle glanced at him. You hungry? His stomach growled loudly, answering for him. He grinned sheepishly. Yeah. She gestured toward a diner across the street. Come on. They slipped into a booth near the window, the hum of conversation and clinking silverware filling the air. Jordan looked around, rubbing his hands together. Man, I can't remember the last time I sat down in a place like this. Noelle raised an eyebrow. You don't eat out? Not really. When you're broke, you don't get to be picky. She frowned, but said nothing. The waitress came over, setting down menus. What can I get you to? Jordan barely glanced at the menu. Cheeseburger, fries, and a chocolate shake. Noelle gave him an amused look before ordering a salad. As the waitress walked away, Jordan leaned back. So, you always eat like a rabbit? She smirked. And you always eat like a teenager? He shrugged. Gotta take what I can get. Her expression softened. How long has it been like that for you? He exhaled slowly, looking down at the table. Forever. She didn't press, but her heart clenched. Their food arrived, and Jordan wasted no time digging in. Noelle watched, realizing just how hungry he really was. So, he said between bites, tell me about you. Since you're my long-lost sister and all. She hesitated. I don't know where to start. Well, how'd you end up a judge? Noelle took a sip of her water. Worked hard. Studied even harder. Law school, then years as a prosecutor before becoming a judge. Jordan whistled. Damn, that's impressive. She smirked. Yeah? What about you? He shrugged. I bounce around. Did some construction work, stocked shelves at a grocery store, whatever pays. Noelle studied him. You ever think about going back to school? He let out a dry laugh. School and me? We didn't get along. Maybe you just never had a reason to stick with it. He raised an eyebrow. You saying you're going to be my reason? She hesitated, then nodded. Maybe. Jordan looked at her for a long time, then gave a small smile. That's new. What is? Someone thinking I'm worth more than I am. Noelle's heart ached. You are. Jordan looked away, his jaw tightening. People don't usually see it that way. She took a deep breath. They're wrong. For the first time, he let himself believe her. Noelle's apartment was clean, structured, and nothing like Jordan was used to. He hesitated in the doorway. "You coming in?" she asked. He rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, just feels weird." She stepped aside. "Make yourself at home." He stepped in cautiously, looking around. "You really live here alone?" She nodded. "Just me. Doesn't feel like anyone lives here at all." "Too neat." She laughed. "I like order." Jordan smirked. "That's a fancy way of saying you're boring." She raised an eyebrow. Says the guy who ordered a cheeseburger like a kid. He held up his hands in surrender. "Hey, cheeseburgers are elite." She rolled her eyes. "Come on, I'll show you your room." The guest room was simple but comfortable. Jordan sat on the bed, running a hand over the blanket. "So how long am I staying?" She leaned against the doorframe. "As long as you need." His throat tightened. "No one's ever said that to me before." "Well, get used to it." Jordan looked at her, his eyes unreadable. "Thanks." She nodded. "Get some sleep." As she walked away, Jordan sat in the quiet, letting the reality of everything settle. For the first time in his life, he wasn't alone. The next few weeks were strange. Good, but strange. Jordan wasn't used to routine, to stability, to someone actually giving a damn. Noelle worked long hours, but she always checked in. Some nights, they ate dinner together. Some nights, she taught him things, budgeting, how to apply for better jobs, little life skills no one had ever bothered to teach him. One evening, Jordan hesitated at the door to her study. "Hey, can I ask you something?" She looked up from her papers. "Of course." He shuffled inside, rubbing his palms together. "Why do you care?" She blinked. "What?" "I mean, you didn't have to take me in. You could have walked away. So why didn't you?" Noelle set her pen down. "Because I don't believe in abandoning family." Jordan scoffed. "Yeah. Well, family abandoned me." She sighed. "I know. And I can't change the past. But I can be here now." He stared at her, then nodded slowly. "That's new." She smiled. "I know." Jordan exhaled, then gave her a lopsided grin. "Man, you're really serious about this whole big sister thing, huh?" She smirked. "Better get used to it." He laughed. "I think I could." For the first time in his life, he believed that. Over the next few weeks, Jordan slowly started to settle in. At first, it felt like he was just visiting, like any moment Noelle would come to her senses and tell him to leave. But that day never came. Instead, she continued to make space for him in her life, in her home, in her routine, and in the quiet moments that made it all feel real. One night, they sat on the couch watching a movie, something Jordan had picked, a dumb action film with over-the-top stunts and barely any plot. Noelle barely paid attention, but Jordan was completely into it, laughing at every ridiculous explosion. Halfway through, she glanced at him and shook her head. "What?" he asked, catching her look. "I just don't get how you can be so entertained by this," she teased. Jordan grinned. "Because it's fun. Not everything has to be deep and serious like your courtroom dramas." She rolled her eyes. "I don't just watch courtroom dramas." "Oh yeah? Name one fun movie you like." She thought for a moment. "The Princess Bride." Jordan groaned. "Seriously? What?" "It's a classic." "Classic doesn't mean good." She gasped dramatically. "Take that back." He laughed, shaking his head. "Nah, I'm standing by it." She threw a pillow at him, and he caught it, still grinning. For a moment, everything felt easy. Then his phone buzzed, and his face fell. Noelle noticed immediately. "Everything okay?" He hesitated before sighing. "It's Trey." Trey. One of the guys Jordan used to run with before all of this. Before he had a home. Before he had stability. "What does he want?" Noelle asked carefully. Jordan shrugged. "Probably money. Or a place to crash." Noelle studied him. "Are you going to answer?" He stared at the screen for a long moment before shaking his head and silencing the call. "Nah. I'm done with that life." She nodded, proud of him, but knowing it wasn't easy. "Good." Jordan exhaled. "You really think I can do this? Like, actually make something of myself?" She turned to him, her expression serious. I don't think. I know. He looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, he let himself believe it. The next morning, Jordan woke up earlier than usual. Noelle was already gone for work, but she had left a note on the counter with his name on it. Good luck today. You've got this. He smiled, picking it up and slipping it into his pocket before heading out. Today was his first day at a new job. Nothing fancy, just a warehouse gig, but it was steady, honest work, and that was something he hadn't had in a long time. The hours were long, and the work was tough, but by the end of his shift, he felt something he hadn't in years: pride. When he got home that evening, Noelle was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. She glanced over as he walked in. So, how was it? He dropped onto the couch, stretching his arms. Exhausting. She smirked. Good. He rolled his eyes. You're a real motivational speaker, you know that? She laughed. I'm proud of you. Something about the way she said it made his chest tighten. He wasn't used to hearing that. Thanks, he mumbled, rubbing the back of his neck. She didn't push, didn't make a big deal out of it. Just set a plate in front of him and sat down. As they ate, Jordan hesitated before asking, So, what happens next? Noelle frowned. What do you mean? I mean me. This. How long do I stay? She put down her fork. I told you before, this isn't temporary, Jordan. He looked down at his plate. Yeah, but what if I screw up? Then we figure it out. Together. He let out a slow breath, nodding. That's new. She smiled. I know. Things were good. Better than they had ever been. Jordan went to work every day, saved his money, and even started thinking about getting his GED. But the past had a way of creeping back in. One night, he was walking home from the store when he saw Trey leaning against a streetlight, waiting for him. Jordan's stomach twisted. He could have kept walking, could have ignored him, but instead, he stopped. Trey. Trey grinned. Jay, man. Thought you forgot about me. Jordan sighed. I didn't forget. Just moved on. Trey scoffed. Man, don't give me that. You think working some 9 to 5 makes you better than the rest of us. Jordan clenched his jaw. No. I just don't want to end up in a cell. Trey took a step closer. Look, I'm not here to fight. I need help. Jordan's gut told him to walk away. But Trey had been like a brother once. What kind of help? Trey hesitated. I just need a place to crash. Just for a few nights. Jordan exhaled. I can't, man. Trey's face hardened. So that's it? You're too good for me now. Jordan shook his head. No. But I'm finally getting my life together. I can't risk that. Trey studied him for a long moment, then scoffed. Guess I was wrong about you. Jordan swallowed. Yeah, maybe you were. He turned and walked away, his chest tight, but his step steady. When he got home, Noelle was waiting. She took one look at his face and knew something was wrong. What happened? He hesitated before sitting down. Ran into Trey. Her eyes darkened. Did he threaten you? No. Just wanted a place to stay. Noelle exhaled. And Jordan met her gaze. I told him no. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then, slowly, she smiled. I'm proud of you. Jordan let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Yeah. She nodded. Yeah. He ran a hand over his face. Man, this growing up stuff is exhausting. She laughed. Tell me about it. He smirked. So can I pick the movie tonight? She groaned. Not another explosion fest. Come on. You'll love it. She sighed, shaking her head. Fine. But if it's terrible, I get to pick tomorrow. Deal. As they settled onto the couch, Jordan realized something. For the first time in his life, he wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. He had a home. He had a future. And most importantly, he had family. And nothing was going to take that away. Over the next few months, Jordan's life took on a rhythm he never thought possible. Work, home, dinner with Noelle, the occasional argument over which movie to watch. It was all so normal. And yet, there was always a small part of him that feared it was too good to last. One evening, he was sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through a GED practice book. Noelle was working late, and he figured he'd put in some study time before she got home. But his concentration was off. His mind kept drifting, back to Trey, back to his past. The last time he saw Trey, the guy looked rough, more desperate than Jordan had ever seen him. And even though he had walked away, part of him still felt guilty. Trey had been his brother, maybe not by blood, but in every way that mattered. His phone buzzed, snapping him out of his thoughts. He glanced at the screen and felt his stomach twist. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Hello. A deep voice on the other end. That you, Jordan? His grip tightened on the phone. Who's this? A pause. Then it's Trey. Jordan's heart pounded. How'd you get this number? I got Waze, Trey said, his voice rough. Listen, I need to see you. It's important. Jordan closed his eyes. He wanted to hang up. He wanted to pretend he hadn't heard those words. But something in Trey's voice, something broken, made him pause. Where? Jordan asked. Warehouse, down by the docks. Midnight. Jordan hesitated. Why there? Just come, man. The line went dead. Jordan stared at his phone, every nerve in his body screaming at him not to go. And yet, when midnight came, he found himself walking toward the docks. The air was thick with the smell of oil and salt water. The old warehouse stood like a skeleton in the dark, its rusted walls covered in graffiti. Jordan stepped inside, his footsteps echoing. Trey. A shadow moved in the corner. Then Trey stepped into the dim light, looking worse than before, his face gaunt, his clothes dirty. But it was his eyes that caught Jordan's attention. They weren't just desperate. They were afraid. You came, Trey said, almost surprised. Jordan crossed his arms. What's this about? Trey licked his lips, glancing around as if someone was watching. I messed up, man. I owe money. Bad people. Jordan tensed. What kind of bad people? Trey swallowed. The kind that don't ask twice. Jordan exhaled, shaking his head. Trey, I told you. I know what you told me. Trey cut in. But I don't have anyone else. Silence stretched between them. Jordan wanted to walk away. He wanted to tell Trey he wasn't his problem anymore. But then Trey said something that stopped him cold. They know about Noelle. Jordan's blood ran cold. What? Trey's voice was barely above a whisper. They know she's a judge. They know she took you in. And if I don't pay up, they're going to use her to get to me. Jordan felt the world tilt beneath him. Noelle, his sister, in danger because of him. He grabbed Trey by the collar, slamming him against a rusted beam. How much? Trey winced. 20 grand. Jordan's breath came fast. Are you serious? They don't care, man. They want their money, or they start making examples out of people. Jordan clenched his jaw. He didn't have 20 grand. He barely had enough to pay for his own meals. But there was no way he was letting Noelle get caught in this. I'll fix this, he muttered. Trey looked at him in disbelief. You will. Jordan shoved him back. Not for you. For her. Then he turned and walked away, his mind racing. He had 48 hours. Back at the apartment, Noelle was asleep when he walked in. He stood in the doorway of her room for a moment, watching her. She looked peaceful, safe. And if he didn't do something, that safety would be gone. Jordan barely slept that night. He spent hours running through every possible way to get the money. Alone? No bank would give him one. Borrowing? From who? That left only one option. A way he swore he'd never go back to. But he wasn't doing it for himself. He was doing it for Noelle. The next night, Jordan met up with someone from his past. A guy named Rico, one of the best at running underground fights. The kind where there were no rules. I need money, Jordan said. Fast. Rico smirked. Figured you were done with this life. Jordan's hands clenched. I was. Rico studied him. This for you. Jordan didn't answer. Rico chuckled. That means no. All right. There's a fight tomorrow. Winner takes 10 grand. You win 2 fights, you're close to your number. Jordan exhaled. I'll do it. Rico clapped him on the back. Good. Hope you remember how to take a punch. Jordan walked away, his stomach twisting. He had just sold a piece of himself to the past. But if it kept Noelle safe, it was worth it. The fight was brutal. Jordan stepped into the underground ring, the roar of the crowd surrounding him like a cage. His opponent was massive, built like a tank, his fists like bricks. The bell rang, and pain came fast. A punch to the ribs, another to the jaw. Jordan staggered, tasting blood. But he didn't fall. He fought back. Hard. Every hit he took, he gave back twice as strong. Minutes stretched like hours. Sweat and blood mixed. But in the end, Jordan stood over his opponent, breathing hard. He had won. 1 fight down. 1 more to go. By the end of the night, he had 15 grand. It wasn't enough. But he had one more option. The next morning, he walked into a pawn shop. He pulled something from his pocket, a thin gold chain. Noelle had given it to him. The only thing he owned that had real meaning. The owner took it, inspecting it. 2 grand. Jordan's stomach twisted, but he nodded. Deal. Now he had 17. It wasn't enough, but it would have to be. That night, he met Trey in an alley. I got 17, Jordan said, shoving the cash into Trey's hands. It's not all of it, but it'll buy time. Trey's hands shook. Jordan. Don't. Jordan's voice was hard. You get 1 chance. Use this money and disappear. You drag me or Noelle into this again, I'll be your problem. Trey's eyes welled up. You're saving my life. Jordan's jaw tightened. I'm saving hers. Then he turned and walked away. Trey never called again. And for the first time, Jordan felt free. Not just from the past, but from the weight of who he used to be. Because now he knew exactly who he was. A fighter. A survivor. And most of all, Noelle's brother. Over the next few weeks, life settled into an uneasy normal. Jordan had bruises that took their time fading. But every time Noelle looked at him with that warm, trusting smile, he knew he'd do it all over again if he had to. Trey was gone, and as far as Jordan was concerned, that chapter of his life was closed. But something still felt unfinished. One evening, Noelle sat across from him at the kitchen table, flipping through a case file while Jordan stared at his untouched dinner. She glanced up, setting her papers down. You're quiet tonight. Jordan forced a small smile. Just thinking. She studied him for a moment. About what? He hesitated. About everything. Noelle leaned back in her chair, waiting. Jordan exhaled. I've been running my whole life. Running from my past, from who I was. I thought that if I got far enough away, I'd be free. He looked up at her. But I don't think that's how it works. Noelle's expression softened. No, it's not. You don't outrun your past. You make peace with it. Jordan scoffed. Easier said than done. She nodded. Yeah, but you've already done the hardest part. He frowned. What's that? She smiled. You stopped running. The words hit him harder than any punch ever had. Maybe she was right. Maybe he had stopped running. But there was still one more thing he had to do. The next morning, Jordan stood outside a small, weathered house on the edge of town. The address had taken him days to track down, but now that he was here, he wasn't sure if he had the courage to knock. Finally, he took a breath and rapped his knuckles against the door. A few moments passed before it creaked open, revealing an older woman with weary eyes and a face lined with years of hardship. Her gaze landed on Jordan, and for a long time, she said nothing. Then, in a voice just above a whisper, she said, You look just like him. Jordan swallowed hard. Like who? The woman stepped aside, motioning for him to enter. He did. The house was small, simple. Worn furniture, the scent of coffee lingering in the air. The woman sat down at the table, motioning for him to do the same. You don't remember me, she said. Jordan shook his head. No. She nodded, as if she expected that. My name's Ruth. Her voice wavered. I'm your mother. Jordan felt his stomach drop. It wasn't possible. He had no mother. No family. Just the system, the streets, and whatever scraps of belonging he could piece together. You're lying, he said, his voice barely steady. She flinched, but didn't look away. I wish I was. Jordan shook his head. No. If you were my mother, where the hell have you been? Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't break. I made mistakes. Jordan let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, I figure that much. Ruth clasped her hands together. I was young when I had you. Too young. And I was with the wrong people. By the time I realized how dangerous it was too late. They took you from me. Jordan's chest tightened. Who? She looked away. The people your brother was in trouble with. Jordan felt like the floor was crumbling beneath him. Trey's debt, the threats, everything. It had all been tangled together in ways he never realized. His whole life, he thought he was just another kid the world forgot about. But the truth was so much worse. He had been taken, sold into the system by people who were supposed to protect him. He stood abruptly, knocking his chair back. You expect me to believe that? She looked up at him, tears spilling over. I don't expect anything, but it's the truth. Jordan's hands clenched into fists. He wanted to run, to disappear. But then he thought of Noelle, of the way she had fought for him, even when she didn't have to, of how she had told him he had to face his past. So he forced himself to breathe. And he sat back down. Tell me everything, he said. And Ruth did. The days that followed were a blur of emotions Jordan wasn't ready to deal with. Anger, grief, confusion. And somewhere beneath all of it, something even worse. Hope. Noelle was the only person he told. He expected her to tell him to walk away, to forget about Ruth and keep moving forward. But she didn't. Instead, she sat beside him on the couch, listening to every word without judgment. Finally, she said, What do you want to do? Jordan laughed, rubbing his hands over his face. I have no idea. Noelle nodded. That's okay. But you don't have to figure it out alone. Jordan glanced at her. Yeah. She smiled. Yeah. Weeks passed. Jordan saw Ruth again. And again. Each time, the anger was still there. But so was something else. Something he wasn't ready to name. One afternoon, he stood outside her house, staring at the door. He could leave, walk away, and never look back. But then he thought of Noelle, of the family he had built, of the fact that maybe, just maybe, he didn't have to keep losing people. So he took a breath. And he knocked. This time, when Ruth opened the door, he didn't hesitate. He stepped inside. Because, for the first time in his life, he wasn't running. He was going home.